Thank you, Patrick. And I want to thank everyone for coming to the session after the bash. It's delightful to see you here and spend the next 55 minutes with me talking about Bootstrap token. I don't know what I was thinking when I proposed this session, to be able to explain Bootstrap token in 2 minutes or less. And Tom promised that I would explain Bootstrap token to you. So I had to keep that promise. So I want to help you explain Bootstrap token in 2 minutes or less. We're going to take 55 minutes. This isn't a session about kanji, even though I work at kanji. This is a collection of information from other resources and other people. And at its core, Bootstrap token is mostly about secure token, so that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I'm a senior product engineer at Kanji. We tear down the wall between IT and InfoSec, and that's about all I'm going to say about Kanji right now. I'm super happy to be there, but want to focus on secure token and Bootstrap token. So a year ago, in the MDM channel of MacAdmin Slack, a user named Sam posted, "Guys, I'm in a bit of a pickle here." We were talking about pickles earlier. I didn't have the credentials to the admin account of a managed Mac, so I created a new account with my MDM and deleted the older account. It seems that the account created was not granted a secure token. I have the escrowed Bootstrap token with the MDM. Is there a way to grant the secure token to the account so that I can log back in? And after I did my session, my virtual session last year, I pointed Sam to that session, worked with them a little bit, and asked them to report back to the group what happened. And so Sam reported back, "Thanks for helping with this. I used the FileVault recovery key to set the password for a user." So booted into Recovery OS, used the personal recovery key, the FileVault recovery key. The FileVault recovery key has secure token. So when I provided the recovery key, that figuratively unlocked the lockbox that contained the key encryption key. When I provided the new password for the user, that created a new lockbox for the user, protected by the user's new password. Now the user has secure token and can log in. Success. That was on the MacAdmin Slack. I don't want to assume that everyone knows about the MacAdmin Slack instance. It's a free instance that's supported by the MacAdmins Foundation, and you can join us at macadmins.org after you review the code of conduct. On behalf of the community, I invite you to join us if you haven't already. And again, I want to take a moment to celebrate all the new faces at MacSysAdmin. And what will you speak about next year? What topic are you going to propose to share with the community next year? I'm one of the volunteer admins of the MacAdmin Slack, helping keep the MacAdmin Slack a safe and welcoming place for everyone to talk about managing Apple technology. Here's a little snippet of the code of conduct. It's not complicated, but we do ask that you read it and then agree to it before you start posting. Andrew yesterday, or not yesterday, Andrew in his talk encouraged us to focus a little bit more on talking to each other in community than the tools. And Weldon encouraged us to stay connected. The MacAdmin's Slack instance is just one tool that we use to stay connected to each other. It's a tool we're using now. It's not necessarily going to be a tool that we use in the future. Let's just keep that in mind as we move forward. Speaking of community, before I go on about Secure Token and Bootstrap Token, I want to share a story about community, about the MacAdmins community. Earlier this year, we went to Australia for the X-World conference. We stopped by the Kanji office in Sydney, spent time with partners, met with customers, the community. It was great fun. I connected with a Swede who was at Mac sysadmin way back when it was at Nia Varvet, before it was at the Volkshuis. Now he lives in Australia. Does anyone recognize him? Yeah, Victor Glemma, yeah. Then we flew to Melbourne, where the X-World conference was held, and the morning of the conference, I tested positive for COVID. So I stayed away from the conference. I recorded a brief, very tired message to encourage the Mac admin community to step up to the challenge of representing users in the face of security mandates that try to lock things down and take away the benefits of using the Apple platform in the first place. And here's why I wanted to talk about this. Marcus Ransom, who lives in Melbourne, brought me a care package. His wife, Vicky, made cookies. He brought me cookies. And I asked him, okay, well, how do I pay for this medicine and for the things that you brought? And he said, just make a donation to the Mac Admins Foundation. Man. So if you would, if you're interested in donating, it's macadmins.org/donate, and we're a nonprofit. I'm not on the board. I'm in the Mac Admin Slack as a volunteer admin, but the Mac Admins Foundation is a nonprofit, and I think it's a great service to the community. I also need to mention that Kanji is a founding sponsor of the Mac Admins Foundation. One more thing about Slack and tools, well, it's about community also, before I talk about Bootstrap Token, the Appleseed channel. There's a channel, Appleseed, with a pinned message about how to join the secret channel where we talk about beta things without fear of scrutiny or without fear of getting in trouble for talking about things that are otherwise under NDA. This is really powerful. There's a lot of really good information in that, and I'm really thankful that we've got that avenue available to us. So again, the instructions are in a pinned note in the Appleseed channel. All right, so back to the goal of this session. I want to help you develop a mental model of secure tokens so that you can explain it. You can explain it to yourself. You can explain it to your colleagues. I want you to have that mental model. So in order to take you on that journey, I want to look at what it is, how they're made, what they're used for, and where they live. I may take some detours along the way. But what is a secure token? It's kind of like a lockbox. So I want you to imagine a house being built, and lots of people need to come in and out, and the house is still under construction. The front door's locked, but people need to get the key in order to unlock the door, in order to come in and continue building the house. One solution is to use a lockbox that's connected to something at the property so that no one can walk off with that lockbox and any authorized person can access the lockbox and then access the key inside. So here's a lockbox in my neighborhood attached to the perimeter fence. It's a close-up. You pull that cover off and you can enter in a passcode in order to get the key in order to unlock the lockbox. So secure token is kind of like a lockbox. The analogy is the further you chase that analogy, the quicker it breaks apart. So the secure token, it's like a lockbox. It's two things. It's a feature, and it's the thing. And I pressed the wrong button. Let's look at how they're made. This is probably the 7th time you've seen the Apple Platform Security Guide. Lots of really good information here. And we've got some diagrams of how the system volume is encrypted. Here's a close-up of what it looks like with FileVault turned off. The volume data over on the right is protected by something called the volume encryption key, or the VEK. The only way to get that volume encryption key is with the hardware key. You can't remove the volume from the Mac and expect to be able to see the volume on that, the data on that volume. Of course, this is assuming you've got modern Mac computers, and by that I include an Intel with the T2 security chip or a Mac with Apple Silicon. All right, so that hardware key that's part of the Mac itself. You can't remove that volume and expect to be able to access it. Because you can't, without that hardware key, you can't get the volume encryption key. Without the volume encryption key, you can't get at the volume data. Let's look at how a secure token's born. It's really, really easy unless you've got a weird workflow. Can I see a show of hands of people who have weird workflows in their life? All right, so there's a few. There's a few of us who have weird workflows. To create a secure token, you log in with your password. That's it. You log in with your password. That's kind of like setting up a lockbox. And this is a really important piece to that. You need the user's clear text password in order to make that first lockbox. That clear text password. That's super, super critical. So after you do that, after you set up that lockbox, the house key is now in the lockbox. The lockbox is protected by your passphrase. There are no unprotected versions of that key anymore in this magical lockbox real-life analogy. The key is in the lockbox. But if the next user also needs to access the key, this is, again, where it breaks down, because in real life, multiple people would just enter their passcode in order to enter the passcode in order to open that lockbox and get the key. But in this cryptographically secure method, what we need to do is unlock the first user's lockbox in order to gain the key, and then create a second lockbox that we protect with that second user's clear text password. Well, we use the clear text password to protect that lockbox. So we copy the key from the first lockbox, place it in the second user's lockbox, and then protect that lockbox with the second user's passcode. The same key is in two different lockboxes, but each lockbox is protected by a different user's key. Clear text passwords, or even hashes of the passwords, are never stored on disk. Instead, macOS uses wrapping with the W. Wrapping is explained in the Apple File System Reference PDF. Let's take a look at it. The keys used to access the data, the keys used to access file data are stored on disk in a wrapped state. Remember I said we don't store the password in clear text or even the hash of the password in clear text. We store it in a wrapped state. You access these keys through a chain of key unwrapping operations. It goes on a little bit further. We unwrap the container's key bag using the container's UUID according to the algorithm described in RFC 3394. Let's take a look at RFC 3394. It's available free on the web. And basically, the important piece here is the AES key wrap algorithm is designed to wrap or encrypt key data. That's what it's about. I get excited and press the wrong key, press the wrong button. When we try to use RFC 3304 to decrypt by applying a clear text password, there's two results. Either you get a key or you get some other data that's not a key, and that's a failure. So if the clear text password works to unwrap that key, then you've succeeded. You've provided the right clear text password. Well, what's really inside that lockbox? Like we're not talking about the key to the house that's being constructed anymore. We're talking about cryptographic stuff. So in our strained analogy, the secure token's kind of like a lockbox. The passcode is like the combination for that lockbox that's unique to you, and what's inside is the intermediate key. The intermediate key is something that can be used to create multiple other keys. It's a key encryption key, or KEK. So a key encryption key is inside your lockbox, and specifically in the Apple Platform Security Guide, it says a secure token is a wrapped version of a key encryption key protected by a user's password. Again, secure token, wrapped version of a KEK protected by your password. It's kind of like an access pass or a token that grants access to other specific keys. And I promise I won't talk about Kerberos. Since the key KEK is a token and that token is secured, it's a secured token. Hence the term secure token. So let's take a look at that volume encryption key, that KEK. It's a token involved with unsealing your protected data. Your KEK wraps the VEK, the volume encryption key. The KEK also wraps the OIK. The OIK, or the owner identity key, allows you to modify the startup security settings, also called local policy, for your specific install of macOS on a Mac with Apple Silicon. It allows you to authorize updates and upgrades, authorize erase all content and settings when the MDM sends the erase command so that you get a Mac that's out of the box instead of a flashing question mark, and some other stuff as well. Coming back to that diagram with the VEK at the center, before you turn on FileVault, remember that physical access to the Mac is enough to access the volume data. You turn on the Mac, the Mac hardware facilitates you being able to access the volume data. That hardware key is part of the Mac. You can start in macOS recovery, look around, access data. Once you turn FileVault on, though, you definitely need a key encryption key because that's what's used to wrap the VEK. Over on the left, you see that the KEK is protected by your user password as well as the hardware key. And we can take this even further in the sealed key protection portion of the document. But it's bananas if you think that we're going to explain the sealed protection key diagram. I want to look at what they're used for. So we've covered what a secure token is. It's a feature. It is a thing. It's made by the first secure tokens by providing your clear text password. Additional secure tokens are created by, again, providing your clear text password so that you can unlock the lockbox, make a copy of the key, and then have someone else's clear text password to create a lockbox for them. I think we need a quick break from tokens. Patrick, your chat GPT jokes were really funny about multiple people having written macOS support essentials. Greg's session was super interesting. But my wife, Heather, who is a librarian, sent this to me a couple days ago, this article. You just found out your book was used to train AI. Now what? And it's got a link to an article in The Atlantic, a series of articles in The Atlantic, including a database that you can search. So, of course, I wanted to search for myself. Can't do that without a subscription, so I signed up for a trial subscription and then set a reminder to cancel that subscription in a month. And I did a search for Eric Dreyer. And it found a book that I wrote with Ben Greisler. It found OS 10 Server Essentials 10.9, using and supporting OS 10 Server on Mavericks. So if you're using AI, if you're using ChatGPT to write answers about maybe access control lists, about podcast producer, that's the kind of information you're going to get from macOS 10.9. Any other name I should type in here? Charles Edge. Yeah, so Rich, I'm sorry that you're not listed with Charles. Alistair, this is at least his second mention here at Mac Access. Alistair and Charles's Learning iOS Security. Charles and William Smith, the Enterprise Mac Administrator's Guide, and Charles Edge on his own with the Using macOS 10 Lion server, managing Mac services at home and office. So these were in the database of the hundreds of thousands of books that were used to train large language models without the author's consent. Very interesting. All right, so back to Bootstrap and Secure Token, how they're used. They're used sometimes just as an access token. We'll talk about the T2, but also sometimes for a cryptographic element to sign things. For an Intel-based Mac with the T2 chip, you need to prove that you have the ability to change settings in Recovery OS. So maybe you want to change the firmware password. Maybe you want to change the level of security that you're booting up with. So you have to be an admin, but that's pretty easy to manipulate in a plist, especially in Recovery OS. But you have to have the secure token in order to successfully change those settings. For a Mac with Apple Silicon, Apple changed the way that you can modify boot settings. Back to the Mac with Intel, we wrote those settings to NVRAM on the Mac, and it affected the entire boot process of the Mac, no matter what operating system you used. For a Mac with Apple Silicon, it's a little bit different. There's something called local policy that affects a specific installation of macOS. Local policy is a collection of boot settings for each install of macOS, and it's cryptographically signed by the OIK, which we've seen before. After you change the local policy, you use your secure token to access the OIK. Use the OIK to sign the local policy, and if the local policy isn't signed, the Mac won't boot, as Tom demonstrated. Secure tokens are important for encryption and data protection. And just a quick review from a couple minutes earlier, after the first secure token's created, there's no more unprotected copies of the VEK. Making another secure token's like copying a key. The VEK is an example of a specific purpose key that gets wrapped by the KEK. Your passcode opens only your secure token to access KEK, to access one of the many specific purpose keys like the KEK. Okay, we're all set on that. When you shut down your Mac, you lock your startup volume. When you turn it back on, the startup volume is locked. When you do that, these are not accessible. All of the data on the startup volume, it's locked behind FileVault. Any internal directory information about users and groups, it's locked. Any external directory information, Active Directory, Open Directory, from your identity provider, not accessible. Your MDM enrollment and management, not accessible. Contrary to what you may have heard earlier in the week, you do have network available. If you look on a Mac with Apple Silicon and a FileVault login window, there's a little Wi-Fi indicator. You've got network, but there's not a lot that the Mac does with that network at this point. I'm holding out hope that in the future, there will be something that Apple does with that network access when you're at a Mac with FileVault being locked. I don't know what it is. I get the sense that it's in the future, and I can't wait. I had said before somewhere at Mac DevOps YVR that there's never been a better time to be a Mac admin. But it's also, I think it's also true that there's never been a worse time to be a Mac admin. That it's always going to be better. That the next thing is just down the horizon. We can taste it. We can feel it. There's weird things that Apple does that kind of winks at what's happening next. And as hard as we try to figure out where that is, sometimes they release things that's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense in hindsight. And one of the things I think about for that is Touch ID. Like the amount of hardware and software engineering that went into Touch ID was really amazing, and that came out before Apple Pay. But when Apple Pay, powered by Touch ID, protected by Touch ID, came out, I was like, okay, that's a building block that makes a lot of sense looking back. All right, so the locked Mac has network available, but nothing on the disk is available. Yeah, I wonder what the future holds. But there is a little bit of metadata outside the locked volume. Information about accounts that have secure token. By default, the Mac displays an icon for every user. And some organizations are like, I don't want an attacker to be able to walk up to a Mac and see a list of all users that they could possibly connect to or possibly try to log in as. So you can go into system settings and change that. You can configure that with a configuration profile with an MDM solution so that it displays username and password fields instead of icons. So if a Mac with FileVault starts, no users are available from the external directory that don't already exist on the Mac, so they can't log in. If you're not in that list of users who can log in, you can't log in. Even if you could provide a new login by some new magic that Apple provides, that user couldn't log in because they don't have a secure token. They need that secure token to unlock the VEK. Because making a new secure token is like copy and key. You need that password for the user before they log in order to allow them to log in at FileVault. With 10.15, there was a lifeline for mobile accounts. It was a Bootstrap token. I've got a slight language diversion. Has anyone heard of Baron von Munchausen? Yeah, so apparently, in the original German telling, he got stuck in a swamp and pulled himself out of the swamp by his hair. And the concept in the English translation turned into he pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And the original concept of Bootstrap token was how preposterous. Something that is completely outside the realm of physical reality. But over time, bootstrapping has turned into something that's maybe possible. And so Bootstrap token, we've got the name Bootstrap token, and Bootstrap token is not preposterous. It makes sense once you understand it and can explain it in 2 minutes. All right, so back from 10.15, we've got a definition of Bootstrap token. It's used to help with granting a secure token to both mobile accounts and the optional managed administrator. So that device enrollment created administrator account. And then in macOS 11, it got some additional functionality. The Bootstrap token can grant a secure token to any user logging into a Mac computer, including local user accounts. Again, any user that provides their clear text password can get that Bootstrap token, can get secure token. And using the Bootstrap token requires an MDM solution that supports Bootstrap token and supervision. And supervision used to be a really big, kind of a hard thing on Mac, and that's pretty trivial now. Some other things from macOS 11 that came with Bootstrap. Bootstrap token may also be used for more than just granting secure token to user accounts. On a Mac computer with Apple Silicon, the Bootstrap token, if available, can be used to authorize the installation of both kernel extensions and software updates when managed using MDM. The Bootstrap token is also used to silently authorize and erase all contents and settings command when triggered through MDM on macOS 12.0 or 1 or later. 12.01 or later. And there wasn't really anything that I knew about or heard about for Bootstrap token with macOS 13. So it kind of felt like Bootstrap token was all about mobile accounts and maybe erase all contents and settings, and we may not have needed to think about Bootstrap token moving forward. But at WWDC this year, if you look at the what's new for education and enterprise, Bootstrap token gets a new life. We've got this feature that Joel demonstrated, the support for local account creation by users at the login window using an IDP account. There's some requirements for this. The users must be running macOS 14. Setup Assistant must be completed. An initial local administrator account must be created. The device must be enrolled in an MDM solution that supports Bootstrap token, very specific keys that are in the configuration profile that's delivered by the MDM solution. And there's some smart card support. Does anyone run labs? There's a few people who run labs. FileVault is not recommended when you don't know who's going to log in after a restart. And when I asked who has weird workflows, probably people with labs. You might be thinking, well, we're pretty clever in this community, and I've seen some solutions and scripts out there that use FDE setup auth restart. So if you use FDE setup auth restart, provide a username and password of a user who's authorized to log in after FileVault's at the FileVault login window, then you can programmatically restart and have FileVault have the volume unlocked at the login window. However, there are some challenges with that. There's an undocumented time limit. The restart script needs the plain text passcode stored on disk in a script. That seems kind of scary. That solution breaks if there's been a power loss. And it's kind of similar to just not turning FileVault on. So I understand that you may be getting pressure to turn FileVault on every single Mac in your organization, even Mac computers in a lab. And I'm here to tell you you're going to have to push back on that, because turning on FileVault for shared lab computers just doesn't make sense right now. Maybe in the future, maybe with the ability of Mac computers with Apple Silicon having network access at that FileVault screen, maybe something can happen. But right now, it's a sad story. All right, so we've covered what's a secure token, how they're made, what they're used for. Let's look at where they live. They're in a key bag. Key bag's kind of magic. I want to talk about our analogy of the house under construction. It's like a magic bag of keys on the house, attached to the house. Not inside the house, but like attached to the frame of the house in a location where everyone knows to be able to find it. The Apple file system PDF has some really detailed information about the containers key bag and the wrapped VEK and the volumes key bag, way more detail than I understand. There's no key bag utility for us to look at. If you want to look at keychains, you can open keychain utility. Of course, now in Sonoma, keychain utility says, maybe you should be using passwords in system settings, which they're probably right. But there's no key bag utility. So how do you deal with key bags? How do you know that they're there? Well, there's some information in the directory node. We can use our old friend directory utility or the directory services command line. And the Mac directory info is stored as plist files. Probably already aware of that. They're stored in var, db, dslocal, nodes, default, down the line. So let's take a look at trying to figure out what's in that magic key bag using directory utility. So I've got directory utility for a user on my Mac. It's got an attribute called authentication authority, and there's a tag there called secure token. And another attribute that I've got is a generated UID. This is an identifier that is guaranteed to be unique across space and time. So this my CBF DB that will never exist on anyone else's Mac in the world. But that secure token text is just a hint. It's not the token. If you delete the secure token tag, parts of the OS might not understand how to deal with you when you need to do things with secure token, but you still have secure token. It doesn't mean much to add secure token tag to a user that doesn't already have secure token. Again, we need the clear text password of that user. There's a key wrapping involved. You can't just trick it by adding secure token text. In fact, you could erase every single file in the APFS data volume, including the directory information, and your secure tokens would still exist. Kind of a weird thought, but they still would exist. So directory utility and DSCL can give you information about the GUID for a user. How do I know if I have a secure token? Well, the diskutil tool knows how to read keybag information. So here's our friend diskutil using APFS and list crypto users, and then the volume slash. So I've got 3 users. So I've got my local open directory user, I've got the MDM Bootstrap token external key, and I've got a personal recovery key. Does anyone have terminal open? I want to do a magic trick. If you have terminal open, I want you to close your eyes and think of a key. And you hold that key in your hand, and you think of what color that key is, and what it feels like when you put the key in the lock and turn it, and now you can open your eyes. All right, so now that I've done that magic trick, I'd like you to run diskutil APFS list crypto users slash, you don't have to write crypto, you can just write list users. And by magic, I've replaced my Bootstrap token onto your device. I've replaced my personal recovery key onto your device. So the Bootstrap token external key GUID on my Mac is now on your Mac. The personal recovery user GUID on my Mac is now on your Mac. Okay, it's not really. I mean, yes, the GUIDs are the same, but the key associated, the secure token associated with that GUID is definitely not the same. We've got the GUID information. How do we associate the GUID with a username? For that, we can use FDE setup, list -- extended. So here, over on the right column, you see that specific GUID is associated with the user called Eric. The other 2 are Bootstrap token and personal recovery record. What happens if you do some silly things like change the GUID? If you change the user's GUID, you still need that user's passphrase in clear text in order to unlock their lockbox. What if you've got a damaged GUID, a user with a damaged GUID? Yikes. It's not clear to the OS who owns the secure token and which password should be used to unlock it. So don't damage your GUIDs. If you've got weird workflows and you're trying to be clever, you might damage your GUID. macOS tries really, really hard to prevent you from doing bad things. It's really hard to delete the last user if that user has secure token. System settings won't allow it. Some command line tools won't allow it, but you're really clever. So we can be more clever together and come up with really unexpected things, like unrecommended flows in Recovery OS. When I was testing with VMs over and over again, I said not with VMs, with APFS time machine backups. I did the trick where Control-Option-Command-T to open terminal. You're at setup assistant. You haven't created a new account yet. You can do that. You can open up terminal. You can't do it at the choose your language screen. You have to wait until you get past the language, then you can open terminal. So in terminal, you can do, what's the command to create a local snapshot? tmutil, time machine utility. tmutil, local snapshot. And it creates a local snapshot. And you can go through and create your user account and not turn on FileVault yet, but you can do some things and you're like, okay, well, maybe I captured the setup assistant screens that I needed to capture for the book, and I'm going to start in macOS recovery and restore from time machine backup. So I'm restoring to a Mac that doesn't have a user set up yet, so that I can go through setup assistant and capture more screenshots. So when I did that, I created a user, and I went through setup assistant. The first time I created a user that had secure token. That secure token information was stored in the key bag, which was on the volume but outside the volume. And then I burned the house down, and I restored from backup. Went through setup assistant, created another local account, same name, local admin, like I always do. And when I went to try to turn on FileVault, I couldn't. I could click the button, but I couldn't, because macOS said, like, well, you already have a secure token, and that's assigned to that user that you burned to the ground. So I was in a pickle. I had no way of creating a secure token. I couldn't enroll in an MDM that would, even if I did enroll I could enroll in an MDM, but that MDM would not be able to get a Bootstrap token because I didn't have a secure token to begin with. So being clever is really fun until you burn the house down and come back and realize that maybe you shouldn't have done that. So don't create a throwaway account with setup assistant and forget the password. It's really easy to do if you've got a desk full of computers and you're in a hurry and you're trying to do something, and yeah, I'll just create this account, Andrew, and the password, whatever. And then you come back and you're like, oh, what was that password? Don't force the password of the last secure token enabled account. So don't force change that. You can do that through various clever methods. And don't delete all your users. I mean, definitely understand why you'd want to delete all users, with the thought of, all right, so there's no known password on this Mac that like help desk is going to blurt out to someone and just anyone be able to walk up to this Mac and log in and do bad things. I want to allow IDP users accounts to be created at the login window, but you always want to have one user with secure token left on that Mac. And using the personal recovery key to reset your password in Recovery OS is okay. It's a little bit cumbersome. You have to start in Recovery OS, choose settings, and enter in a long personal FileVault recovery key string. But it's a really good way to allow only one admin account on a Mac that user uses, and then if they forget their password, to allow an MDM admin to look up the recovery key, give the recovery key to the user. So because the personal recovery key that's escrowed in the MDM solution has access to the KEK, the Mac can safely destroy the old lockbox protected by the forgotten password and create a new lockbox by wrapping the KEK in the clear text passcode that you enter in Recovery OS when it's time to specify what your new password is. So again, that clear text password in order to wrap the key. And please don't write that PRK on a piece of paper and stick it in your bag and get your bag stolen with your laptop in it, because then the thief will be able to take the key and use it to change the password, which then safely destroys the old lockbox protected by the forgotten password and creates a new lockbox by wrapping the KEK with the clear text password that you provide for the new password. So on a Mac that automatically creates a managed administrator account, when does that account get a secure token? Does anyone want to shout out? When you log in. When you provide the clear text password to log in. Not until someone types it. So the mechanics behind that is the MDM command to create that account during device enrollment process, during automated device enrollment. Wow, during automated device enrollment. That create account contains the hash of the password, not the password. That clear text password is required to create the secure token, and this poses a challenge for a local admin password cycling type solution for a Mac after restart. And again, I'm holding out hope for some kind of magic trick in the future, but we'll see. You need the OIK in order to change boot settings for a Mac with Apple Silicon. You need the password of a secure token user in order to get access to the OIK, in order to sign any changes to the boot settings, like update or upgrade. If there is a Bootstrap token, your Mac can ask MDM for the Bootstrap token to facilitate accessing the OIK so that your MDM solution can force an update without a user typing in their password. If you lose all the keys, you've got to start over. So with Bootstrap token before macOS 10.14, I thought it was kind of a dead end. I thought like, okay, that was cute for these kind of corner cases, but for Bootstrap token, as of macOS 10.14, it's become important again. So I said I'd try to help you explain Bootstrap token in 2 minutes. So here we go. The Bootstrap token is a feature of macOS. It requires an MDM solution that supports it. Requires Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager. Bootstrap token allows the Mac to obtain a secure token, approve kernel extensions, approve software updates without a user entering their password. Approve erase all contents and settings from an erase command from MDM so that you get a fresh out of the box Mac. Use declarative Bootstrap token allows Mac to use declarative device management for macOS updates and create a new account at the FileVault unlocked window with platform SSO. As a feature, secure token is the implementation of encryption keys for securing the APFS volume when they're generated and how they're stored. As an object, secure token is a wrapped version of a key encryption key protected by a user's password that lives in a key bag, which is a chunk of data written to the internal volume, accessible even when FileVault is turned on. A user with a secure token can create new secure tokens, access the VEK for FileVault after restart, and access the OIK for updates and etc. That first secure token key is made by wrapping the KEK with the first user's clear text password, which also removes the KEK from being unprotected. Subsequent secure tokens are made by unwrapping another secure token to get access to the KEK, then wraps the KEK with the new user's password. The new features of MDM are going to be declarative device management. And in order to use DDM for software updates, the MDM solution must support Bootstrap token. Platform SSO, it's an app extension from an app provided by your identity provider, which enables users to sign in once at the login window and then automatically sign into apps and websites, and that's 2 minutes. But I'm going to keep going. And absolutely does not now handle creating the first local user account. The specific platform SSO features for Sonoma are user enrollment and registration status and system settings, local account creation by users, update group membership of users when they authenticate with their IDP, and use non-local IDP user accounts at authorization prompts. In order for PSSO to create a new user, so the Mac must be enrolled in an MDM solution that supports Bootstrap token, fully booted with macOS 14, with setup assistant created, with existing local account created, and with FileVault unlocked. So in recap, Bootstrap token helps an MDM solution obtain a secure token to create new users, secure tokens, and change local policy. And the Mac can silently install updates, approve kernel extensions, and erase all contents and settings. Use declarative device management to update macOS and allow platform SSO to create a new user at the login window. And that was Bootstrap token in 3 minutes because when I originally was thinking about it, we didn't have that platform SSO. So I needed an extra minute for platform SSO. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. So questions about this? Tom has some questions, I think.
Thank you, Eric, for giving us that that was a perfect 3 minutes. One thing that I think is interesting about the Bootstrap token is that the device doesn't have the Bootstrap token. It has the key slot for the Bootstrap token. Can you talk a little bit about how the device fetches that Bootstrap token and gets it back to the device?
Yeah, the device, the MDM client asks the MDM solution for the Bootstrap token. The specific mechanisms of how that happens, I don't have that. But yeah, thanks for having me point out that MDM client process on the Mac is the thing that facilitates fetching that Bootstrap token.
Great. Well, with that,
I would like everyone to record their 3-minute explanation of Bootstrap token and provide it in the comments below.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.